Hi, everyone. Welcome to your lecture on blood type and sex-linked inheritance. The classic example of codominance in humans is blood type. And the gene that controls the ABO blood type codes for an enzyme that makes a glycolipid on blood cells. There are two alleles that are codominant. We call them IA and IB, or just A and B. They are codominant. And the third allele, IO, or blood type O, is recessive to both A and B. So if you look over here at this picture, blood type A has little A glycolipids or A antigens on the surface of the blood cell. Blood type B has a different type on the surface of the blood cell, and we call them B antigens. A, B are codominant, and so you'll see both A and B antigens. And then blood type O has none of them at all, or zero. Okay, so the genotypes for your blood type. If you have blood type A, that's considered your phenotype. And you can either be homozygous for blood type A, being you have the two A alleles, IA, or you can be heterozygous for it. You can have one A allele and one O allele. So the A allele we represent with a capital I and a A. And then the O is represented with a lowercase I because O is recessive, so it's a little I. The phenotype for the B allele, the B blood type, you can either be homozygous dominant for B, or you can be heterozygous and have one B allele and one O allele. Remember, A and B are both dominant over O. However, since A and B are codominant, if you have one A allele and one B allele, then you have AB blood type. That is a new blood type. And in order to show the recessive blood type, which is O, you must have two O alleles, or the two little i's, as your genotype. So your blood type is determined by A and or B proteins on the red blood cell surface, and you can see that pictured here. So if you have blood type A, you have these A proteins on your blood cell surface. And in your blood plasma, or the fluid that surrounds your blood, you have these Y-shaped proteins called antibodies that are for that B protein. So if you were to receive a blood transfusion and you have blood type A and you got some blood from somebody that was blood type B, your immune system would kick in and start attacking all of that blood that came into your system. And that's what we call when your body rejects it. So we would be very, very careful about what type of blood is given to people. So blood type B has B proteins on the blood cell surface and A antibodies. So it would attack blood type A. Blood type AB has A and B proteins, and it has no antibodies in the plasma. So A and AB is considered the universal recipient. It can receive type A blood and type B blood and type O blood because it has no antibodies here to attack any of those options. So it will be the universal recipient. Blood type O, on the other hand, has no proteins on the surface. So it is the universal donor. Blood type O can be given to anybody because it won't go after, it won't set off the alarms of the immune system for anybody. So blood type O, though, it can only receive from other people that are blood type O, because if you have type O blood, then you have A and B antibodies in your plasma. So if you were to get blood from somebody that's A, B, or AB blood type, then your body would reject it, all of it. So type O blood is the universal donor. Type AB blood is the universal recipient. When you do blood tests, they're done by adding antibodies to a sample and seeing what clots. So if you have type AB blood right here, it clots with both anti-A and anti-B. Type A blood reacts to just anti-A, type B blood, just anti-B, and type O blood doesn't clot with either. So when we answer these questions, which blood type clots with both anti-A and anti-B? That should be AB blood. Which blood type doesn't clot with either? Type O. If you do not know what your blood type is, you can find out through your doctor, or if you donate blood, the Red Cross will let you know what your blood type is if you ask them. So besides just having AB, or O blood type, you also have a positive or a negative. And so my blood type personally is A positive, but my mother was A negative. That positive or negative is relating to whether or not you have the rhesus protein. You are either positive for the rhesus factor or negative for the rhesus factor. And being Rh negative is problematic during pregnancy for moms. And you have pictures of monkeys here in the upper left-hand corner. Those are rhesus monkeys, and that's actually how this was discovered, and it's named after them. They're kind of cute. So if you have a negative blood type as the mother, and you're pregnant with a baby that has a positive blood type, then your body is going to make antibodies against that baby and going to attack it. And so what you have to do to protect that pregnancy, to protect the baby, is that a doctor will give you something called a RhoGAM shot about 28 weeks into your pregnancy, and it can hide those positive rhesus protein cells from the mom's bloodstream so that it's not attacking the baby. Now, if you are a Rh negative mother, then each subsequent pregnancy, so every time you get pregnant, it gets more and more dangerous because your body now recognizes it quicker and has a stronger immune response to the baby. And so you would have to go in for possibly more shots and stuff. So there's some other treatments to do, but that is something they will test for during pregnancy of every mother. They have to find out your blood type, because if you have a negative blood type and that baby has a positive blood type, then that's going to be something that they have to treat. So we're going to do some examples of Punnett squares with blood type. And there's a lot of like, who's your daddy type of problems. So is it possible for this individual to be the father of the baby? Now, you know who the mom is because she gave birth to the baby. But we may not know who dad is. We'll find out if it's possible or not. So if a mom is type B blood and dad is type O blood and baby is type AB, is this possible? So we know that dad's blood type has to be little I, or it has to be completely recessive for it. He only has one possible genotype, being type O blood. But mom is type B blood. She can either be BB or homozygous for B, or she can be type B blood and type BO. So if you don't know, then use the heterozygous version where you have one dominant and one recessive allele, because that'll give you all of the possibilities for the baby's blood type. So whenever you don't know if it's homozygous or heterozygous with blood type, use the heterozygous version. So we'll set this up. Mom is IB little I. Use heterozygous, it's more likely, and just when you're in doubt, just use that one because it'll cover all your bases. And dad has to be little I. So if we set that up, even if the letter has a superscript, you just treat that all like one letter. So everything carries together. You don't do anything funny with those superscripts. You just carry the whole thing down, just like it's one letter. So then your blood types are IB little I. So that would be type B blood here in these two. And then little I. Those are type O. So is it possible for the baby to be type AB blood? Well, not with that dad. Sorry. So sex chromosomes, the 23rd pair in humans. So this is called a karyotype. And a karyotype is a picture of all of the chromosomes, and they're lined up with their homologous pairs. So you have 23 pairs. Chromosomes number 1 through 22 are called autosomes, and the 23rd pair are your sex chromosomes. And if they are XX, then that is a girl. XY are the sex chromosomes for a boy. So the X here is much larger than the Y. It has essential genes that have nothing to do with your sex, and you cannot live without it. There is not a living person alive today that doesn't have at least one X chromosome. And females have two X chromosomes, and one of them is usually deactivated, and the information from the other is what your body's using. The Y chromosome is very small here, and it basically determines if the person is going to develop testicles. So if you have a Y chromosome, you develop into a male with male secondary sexual characteristics. So we're going to kind of move on to sex-linked here and figure out what the probability is of having a boy or having a girl. So the female, the eggs always contain an X chromosome. Every single egg contains an X chromosome because females have two X's. They only have an X to give. A male's sperm can contain either an X or a Y. So if the sperm with an X in it meets an egg, then you will have a girl. If the sperm with a Y chromosome in it meets the egg, then you will have a boy. So there is a 50-50 probability of having a boy or a girl. So sex-linked traits are ones that are inherited on that X chromosome, not the Y chromosome typically. And so we can refer to them also as X-linked. Males either have it or they are not, and they cannot be heterozygous because they only have one X. So if it shows up on that one X, then they are affected. Females have two X's, so they can have the disease, or they can be a carrier for it, or they can be not affected at all. Men cannot be a carrier. The sex chromosomes have genes for many characteristics unrelated to sex, and if it is on that X chromosome, it's called a sex-linked gene. Sex-linked genes can follow a specific pattern of inheritance. Typically, you have females that are carriers and males that are affected. And most of them are recessive disorders, and they are much more common in males than females if they are. Some disorders that are caused by recessive alleles on the X chromosome in humans include color blindness, muscular dystrophy, hemophilia, and male pattern baldness. Hemophilia is a blood disease that impairs the ability of the blood to clot. The main treatment for hemophilia is called replacement therapy, and it's giving or replacing the clotting factor that's too low or missing. Hemophilia was considered the royal disease because Queen Victoria was a carrier for it in the 1800s. She had a lot of children, and so she passed that disease through and had some daughters that were carriers and some sons that had hemophilia. At the time, also, they didn't have the clotting factors. So they really had to be careful with those boys that had hemophilia. If your blood can't clot and you get even a small cut, then there is a good possibility that you can bleed out from a bruise or a cut or anything like that. So it's just very, very dangerous. Just think of how often you get paper cuts or just random cuts or bruises that you don't have to worry about because they clot up on their own, they barely bleed. But if you're a hemophiliac, then all of those could be life-threatening. Just continue to bleed and never clot. If a hemophiliac man, a man with hemophilia, were to marry a healthy woman, what is the probability they will have any hemophiliac children? So you see that hemophiliac gene being represented by a superscript. They put a little r here on the X chromosome of the male, and the female is normal. And so that X with a little r right here would, you would have one go to each of the daughters, and then the Y go to each of the sons. And so they would have 0 hemophiliac children. All of them are healthy, but the sons or the daughters are carriers for it, meaning they don't have it, but they could give it to their children. Color blindness is much the same way. Red-green color blindness is the most common, and that's when red and green look the same to you. And it affects about 1 in every 10 males in the US and only 1 in every 100 females. Because males only have one X chromosome, all X-linked alleles are expressed in males. If you were to do a Punnett square of a man with normal vision marrying a colorblind woman and figure out what the probability is that they will have a colorblind son. So the mom is colorblind. So we'll put a little C for this recessive colorblind allele. And in order for her to be colorblind, she has to be homozygous for it. She has to have that recessive trait on both of her alleles. So you put her 2 X's because she's a female, and then a little C and a little C. Dad will have an X and a Y with nothing on it because he has normal vision. Here you have a daughter that's a carrier and a daughter that's a carrier, a son who is colorblind, and another son who is colorblind. So it says, what's the probability they'll have a colorblind son? We're asking only about the sons here, so don't take the daughters into consideration at all. All of the sons are colorblind, so that is 2 out of 2, or 100%. So here's a little colorblind test. You can find tons of them online. And this is just what you see inside these boxes. The top left one is the number 58. Then the top right is the number 18. The bottom left is the letter E, or sometimes people only see an L because the portion that makes an L and then the portion that makes a capital E are in different colors. And then this bottom right one is the number 17. A bald man marries a woman whose father was bald. What's the probability they will have a son with male pattern baldness? So if he is a bald man, we're going to put a little b on his X. So it'll be X, little b, Y. And a woman whose father was bald. If her dad was bald, he had to give her that X chromosome with the little b on it. So she is a carrier. She's not a bald woman, but she's got to be a carrier for it. So you're going to put the XX for mom with a little b on 1 because her dad was bald. So she got that from him. And then an XBY for the dad. And to have a son with male pattern baldness, the probability is going to be 50%. So one of their sons will be bald and the other son won't be. However, they're going to have a bald daughter. Yikes. Okay. So male pattern baldness does occur in women. It is rare, but it is, and it doesn't look like male pattern baldness in men. So instead of women getting that like balding on the top of their head where it's like receding hairline and going back, they actually, if you notice, like some women when they're older have just really thin, wispy hair all over. That's how it appears in females. So thankfully, that's how it appears in females, just very, very thin, sparse hair. All right. Have a good day.